Sundays really do make shopping fun.
Sunday is brought to you by one of the world's most successful international resource companies, Australia's BHP.
Good morning again. I'm Jim Whaley. Welcome to Sunday. The newspapers portrayed him as Lear, the king who couldn't leave well alone. They could as well have drawn a Caesar trying to sack Brutus, a Duncan trying to evict Macbeth. For the fate that overwhelmed Queensland Premier Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen this week had all the inevitability of a Shakespearean tragedy. The man who bestrode his state like a colossus for nearly 20 years, who had the political scalp of none other than Gough Whitlam on his belt, could not bear to see lesser mortals usurp him. We'll be devoting much of this Sunday to the fall of Sir Joh, including our cover story, in which Charles Woolley has been to Joh country to see how his last loyal supporters have weathered this amazing week.
What is it that you admire about them?
Oh, well, what would you say, Dolph?
Well, I could say their simplicity and their straight-out honesty.
Joh was here when we were little children, like Diane pointed out before, and he's still here today. And we've grown up with Joh's government.
I have no intentions of resigning under any circumstances.
His members haven't stood behind him. I think they're just jabbing him in the back. I feel really sorry for him. Oh, it's not the political part, it's just Joh personally. That's all. I think they've hurt him very deeply.
Joh's People is our cover story this Sunday, to be reported by Charles Woolley. And like any of Shakespeare's tragedies, or farces for that matter, this one still has at least one more act to play. An act yet to be written by Sir Joh himself, after his refusal to budge, to leave the stage quietly. How this came about and those who were involved is the subject of another of our reports.
I cannot continue in good government with the leaks, with the disloyalty that I've had to experience for so long.
I'm announcing today a challenge for the leadership of the Parliamentary National Party in Queensland.
Why should I resign or why should I go it alone? I'm an elected, I've been elected as Premier. We've done a very, very good job. We had good election results.
I find it extraordinary that someone of his political nous could be so stupid.
I don't know what you're all coming around for, because I'm still going to be here.
We like taking pictures of you, Joh.
Yeah.
I think you've won the day.
Thank you.
Who did what to whom and why in that bizarre week in Queensland? We've also compiled an analysis of the Joh era. 2 decades of weird and wacky deeds, but deeds that often disguised a tough will, a deft political hand, and a canny insight into the mind of rural Australia.
The National Party of Australia, Queensland, fully supports the move by Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen to attain the Prime Ministership.
The end of the Joh era began with his foray into federal politics.
You can't walk along a barbed wire fence with a foot in each paddock in each party. They tell me it's most uncomfortable. I think they're finding it pretty uncomfortable at the moment.
They can count his marbles there without distressing any of us.
I haven't lost any marbles at all. I don't have any, as a matter of fact.
The Joh decades, to be reported by Justin Murphy a little later. And to complete our Queensland muster, we'll be talking to the sacked Minister for Mines, Brian Austin. But the world does keep turning, with or without Sir Joh, so Peter Thompson has a film review with some Sunday music and our usual look at the rest of the week's news. And we'll begin with the news of this Sunday, the 29th of November. And all 159 passengers and crew are feared dead in the crash of a jumbo jet in the Indian Ocean. 2 Australians were reported on the South African Airways flight from Taiwan to Johannesburg. The plane disappeared from radar screens near the island of Mauritius last night after the crew reported a fire in the cockpit. So far, no sign of wreckage or survivors.
Worried relatives at the airport in Johannesburg were first told the flight from Taiwan had been delayed. Then the news was broken that an emergency signal had been received and the jumbo was listed as missing. Flight SA-295 had been en route from Taipei in Taiwan to Johannesburg, scheduled to refuel on the island of Mauritius. At 15 minutes to midnight, the pilot sent an emergency signal saying there was a fire in the cockpit and he was beginning an emergency descent. 18 minutes later, he was given permission to descend further and he acknowledged that signal. Nothing more was heard. With the flight still listed on the arrivals board, officials at Johannesburg Airport gave their first account of what could have happened.
The last message that we received from the captain was that there was smoke in the cockpit and that he probably had a fire.
As to explanations, if the cockpit of a jet like this did catch fire, it's likely to have been either a serious malfunction or even sabotage.
Reports from Jakarta this morning that more than 100 people may be dead after an earthquake triggered landslides and a tidal wave in eastern Indonesia. The quake hit the island of Pantar. 42 people are confirmed killed, 75 others missing. In the Pacific, the eve of the general elections in Vanuatu. Amid tight security, 100 candidates are contesting 46 seats in the national parliament, with the ruling Vanuatu Aku Party, led by Father Walter Lini, expected to hold power. Still recovering from a stroke earlier this year, Prime Minister Lini says he's in good health and has no plans to step aside. In Haiti, another 3 people have been killed, bringing to 25 the number who've died in the lead up to today's elections. It's the country's first free ballot since the 1950s, an election many hope will finally erase the memories of the Duvalier regime.
Death stains the streets every morning in Haiti. The campaign of terror here far overshadows the political campaigns of the country's 23 presidential candidates. Haiti is under siege by people trying to stop democracy from ever taking hold.
We are preparing the election. Are we sure that it can be held? Only God knows.
Security is tight at the headquarters of the Independent Electoral Council that will oversee Haiti's first free elections in 30 years. For days, there has been talk that the interim military government that replaced the Duvalier dictatorship would try to stop the voting. Over the summer, the streets erupted in protest when the government attempted to take control of the electoral process. The government was forced to back down.
Anybody who is crazy enough to think that they could make a coup and the people would not react is crazy. I mean, unless they want to kill 200,000 people in the street, I don't think they're willing to do a thing like this.
Haiti is also suffering the strains of political disorganization. Not enough voting equipment and transportation. No security for polling places. But officials insist the national elections will go forward, saying it is better to make a disorganized attempt at democracy than to postpone elections and invite anarchy.
Prime Minister Hawke arrives in the Soviet Union late today for a 4-day visit, his first there. Among the issues he'll discuss with Kremlin leader Mikhail Gorbachev, the expanding Soviet role in the Pacific, an issue canvassed by Mr. Hawke during a stopover in Singapore, where the Prime Minister took part in a television forum.
Prime Minister Hawke joined Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew on a television panel being quizzed by journalists about the state of regional affairs in general and Mr. Hawke's visit to the Soviet Union in particular. Lee Kuan Yew remains pessimistic about the Russian role in the region. Mr. Hawke, however, takes a more optimistic view.
Well, if we're going to make the judgments about the Soviet Union now simply on the basis of the past, then I don't think we'll be accepting our responsibility.
The official business began at one of Singapore's high-rise hotels. After a formal dinner with Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, Mr. Hawke delivered a major speech on regional affairs to a VIP audience. His imminent visit to the Soviet Union was a key point, and Mr. Hawke had a word of warning about the growing Soviet presence in the Pacific.
Now, we must watch very carefully to see how this approach is developed. For my part, I would welcome a constructive involvement by the Soviet Union in political and economic developments in the Asia-Pacific region. And I emphasise a constructive involvement.
Mr. Hawke also used the occasion to talk about another of his major concerns. In some of the strongest language he's used, he warned that disaster would come if South Africa did not peacefully abandon apartheid.
Change will come if it doesn't come by negotiation, it will come with incredible and indescribable violence and bloodshed.
The Prime Minister's next stop on this trip will find him half a world and about 40 Celsius degrees away from here. He's going to Leningrad and Moscow, where it's about -20 at the moment. The Prime Minister's hoping for a fairly warm reception from the Soviet government, though, with the possibility of some important trade and human contacts agreements being signed. Peter Harvey reporting for Sunday from Singapore.
Sport now, and after picking up a fistful of birdies on the third day of the Australian Open, Greg Norman goes into today's final round with a seemingly unbeatable lead. Norman shot his second 66 yesterday to take a 7-stroke lead over South Australian Ron Wood.
Right portion of the green. Oh, what a jam from Norman.
He now has a virtual stranglehold on the tournament at 14 under. A win today will return Norman to his #1 world ranking. Next, a massacre of missionaries and talking turkey. Stories in our Week in Review after this.
This is the rail link from the Mount Newman iron ore mine to Port Hedland. A few years back, the BHP miners were continually replacing the steel rails. They were pounded flat by these huge ore trains.
So BHP Minerals, which operates the line, took the problem to the bright boys at BHP Research and Technology. With BHP Steel, they came up with what they call head-hardened rails. These have doubled the life of normal steel rails. BHP Steel has already exported head-hardened rails to China and the technology to North America. That's how BHP works. The separate business groups, steel, petroleum and minerals, working together to produce better products more efficiently and to open up new export opportunities for Australia. The BHP blokes call it synergy. You and I'd call it common sense. No wonder one of the world's most successful and profitable resource companies is Australia's BHP.
When the day arrives that you promised yourself you'd own the ultimate driving machine, there's one man you should see. The man whose dedication and knowledge has made him one of the top BMW dealers in Sydney. The man who has sold more BMWs than any other dealer in Australia. This man, John Trivett.
After 20 years of selling and servicing BMWs, I know what BMW owners want and expect.
Trivett Classic, Church Street, Parramatta.
Hello. If your business demands that you live out of a suitcase from time to time, you should really get yourself the Flag In-Club card. It means a minimum 10% discount on all your accommodation. It's free, and it's accepted at over 500 Flag Inns. How do you get one? Ring 008 335 005 now. Hello? I told you not to ring me at work.
You have a home loan with the State Building Society, is that right, Wendy?
Certainly have had for ages. Yes. They bought us our house.
That's your second one, isn't it?
Yes, it
you
is.
had one prior to that?
Yes.
How'd you find them?
Oh, they were tremendous. You know, when we first started out, we really didn't have much capital at all, and they came to the party.
Such is the cordiality between the superpowers that there seem to be as many optimistic surprises these days as there were bellicose threats during the Cold War. This week, Margaret Thatcher supported the innovations being made in the Soviet Union by Mikhail Gorbachev before inviting the Kremlin leader to stop over in Britain on his way to next week's summit in Washington. Second surprise, Mr. Gorbachev accepted. And for a third surprise, a Soviet official praised the Reagan administration for its willingness to reduce the number of nuclear missiles, all of which was but a backdrop to a successful pre-summit meeting between Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze and his U.S. counterpart, George Shultz.
Minister Shevardnadze and I are shaking hands. And the reason is that we've now completed agreement on all of the outstanding INF issues.
Such as the destruction of 350 American and 1,500 Soviet warheads, the treaty to be verified by hundreds of inspectors, and for Soviet inspectors to be stationed in America and U.S. inspectors in Russia.
I mean, for the first time in history, we will have people on site in the Soviet Union
looking at missiles as they come out of the final assembly facility, and that's, for those of us who've been around for a while, that's pretty mind-boggling.
In Brussels, Mr. Schultz briefed NATO foreign ministers on an offer he thought too good to refuse.
Anyone who says that Europe doesn't like this treaty just doesn't have a clue about European attitudes.
Attitudes in the US Senate were also important because the deal still has to be ratified by a two-thirds majority. President Reagan was ever the optimist.
I'll bet we can.
But not so two Republican presidential candidates.
I would say right now, I'm just guessing, that maybe there are 50 senators for the treaty, maybe 20 against it. It's not going to be easy.
Frankly, I don't think it's verifiable. I don't think it's enforceable. I don't think we ought to sign a new agreement with the Soviets until they keep their past agreements with the United States.
In the Persian Gulf, an American warship stood by while an Iranian gunboat attacked a Romanian tanker.
I need immediate assistance. I am challenging and firing by Iranian warship. Please immediate assistance.
The tanker was hit several times, but no one was injured. Ships who answered the distress call wondered why the American vessel didn't.
Your help is needed. While you're running away.
The reason? The US Navy is under orders to defend only ships flying American flags. Israel mourned 6 soldiers killed in an attack by a Palestinian guerrilla flying a motorized hang glider from Lebanon. 8 other Israelis were wounded in the shootout, in which the heavily armed guerrilla died. A second Palestinian in another hang glider flew off course and was also shot dead. The pro-Syrian Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine claimed responsibility. In southern Zimbabwe, a massacre of missionaries, including 5 children, has raised fears of further terrorist attacks among the white community. 15 whites and 1 black were brutally murdered by anti-government rebels in Matabeleland.
They used the axes to yeah, they didn't use their guns.
Many of the dissidents support opposition leader Joshua Nkomo, who denied any involvement in the killings, which for some did not come as a surprise.
Were prepared to die for their faith, and they believed strongly in what they were doing.
In Cyprus, hundreds of Greek Cypriot women braved unmarked minefields in a border-crossing protest against 13 years of occupation of the island's north by Turkish troops.
We shall continue with this dynamic movement until the Green Line is finally broken, until the partition of Cyprus is finished.
The women were later detained by UN peacekeeping forces. Western television crews in Moscow faced this when trying to cover the case of Tatiana Kolchinsky, who's been seeking an exit visa for 9 years.
Get your hands off.
Watch it run! Need!
Come here. Why? Who are you? Why did you do that?
The following day, Mrs. Kolchinsky had reinforcements. New York City councillors, also giving Glasnost a testing time.
Guys over here, they look familiar to you? Are these gangsters, hooligans? You've seen them before. KGB? KGB?
You're only supposed.
Excuse me?
You're only supposed.
I am surprised, but you act like hooligans. We wouldn't do this in New York.
At least 300 people were killed in the Philippines, hundreds more were missing, and 100,000 others homeless in the wake of Typhoon Nina. President Corazon Aquino declared a state of emergency after the storm lashed the main island with winds of up to 200 kilometers an hour. And in Italy, 2 days of strong winds and torrential rains battered Florence and Venice. Dams built after the 1966 floods managed to contain the Arno River, but in Venice, with water levels 1.5 meters above normal, it was hard to tell where the canals ended and the walkways began. A small outbreak of democracy in Central America this week. As a goodwill gesture towards a regional peace plan, Nicaragua released 985 political prisoners, some of them held since the 1979 Sandinista revolution. And in neighboring El Salvador, rebel leader Ruben Zamora was allowed to return from 6 years of exile in Managua. And in this week, when Americans gave thanks to their pilgrim forefathers by carving up turkeys, farmers ran foul of animal livers.
Giving thanks to life while we slay 40 million turkeys for Thanksgiving. This we feel is somewhat strange.
But even some turkey farmers were forced to admit they become attached to their birds.
You really do. You really do. As bad as they smell, you really do.
Next, an America's Cup challenge and a challenge to Australia to help out in the Persian Gulf when we review the week's news at home after this.
Tonight, 7:30 on 9, one of last year's most acclaimed series returns.
Already more than 2,000 years ago, Chang'an was a center of exchange between East and West.
The Silk Road, a superb look at ancient glory.
Silk is one of the most important features of Chinese civilization.
From a trade long past to an emperor's sculptured army and a civilization shrouded in mystery. Travel the Silk Road, 7:30 tonight on 9.
Sometimes survival means changing direction. The move is to smaller, simpler, smarter business equipment from Sharp. Sharp, simply the best in the business.
Take a seat in the funniest department in years.
Look, while I'm head of this department, I'm not having anybody carve themselves out little empires.
Critics applaud the department.
Because I won't hesitate to flush out anybody I find hiding in some stagnant little pocket of knowledge.
It's riotously funny with deadly wit, with Max Gillies at his brilliant best. So book now for an hilarious evening with Max Gillies and an outstanding comic cast in David Williamson's The Department.
Honda wanted to make a car that everyone would agree was the best in its class. So they developed a Formula One-inspired, fuel-injected overhead cam engine, speed-responsive power-assisted steering, an aerodynamically superior body, and included a host of luxury features as standard. When Honda asked people what they thought of their new car, they spoke with one accord.
We love it.
So that's what Honda called it.
Has this ever happened to you? Your glasses are too expensive to break or lose. Now you can safeguard your prescription glasses against life's mishaps. OptiSafe gives a full 12-month guarantee on your glasses against loss or breakage. OptiSafe is available only on spectacles sold by leading optometrists, members of the Australian Optometrical Association. Look for the OptiSafe sign at your optometrist.
Bright, glossy colour. It really can be stunning. Imagine how much brighter this kitchen would be with that kind of glow. A bit of blue here, yellow over here, and here you can use a softer colour.
Be the artist in your home. Use British Paint's Glossmaster in Gold Dust, New Slate and Peacock.
It looks great, and it'll last. Even your toughest critics can't knock that.
Trust British Paints.
It wasn't only Queensland that was beset by political ructions this week. In New South Wales, signs emerged that the Unsworth Labor government was in trouble. Its biggest electoral liability seemed to be Laurie Brereton, the high-profile but highly unpopular Public Works Minister, who's associated with contentious inner Sydney developments such as Darling Harbour, the monorail and the Sydney Harbour Tunnel. So, with all the hallmarks of a government gearing up for an election, Brereton became the big loser in a cabinet reshuffle by Premier Unsworth.
That is that I made an offer to Mr. Brereton which he didn't accept, and he has decided to resign from the cabinet.
Mr. Unsworth's offer, the lowly portfolio of minerals and resources. This because of Laurie Brereton's association with the most unpopular and controversial of projects, Darling Harbour and the monorail.
The way in which Mr. Brereton went about his job caused upset to some people, and maybe we need a softer approach in that area.
Despite claiming the Premier had promised him a new super transport ministry after the election, Brereton resigned.
I wouldn't be human if I didn't say that I was disappointed. The projects that I've been associated with will be judged on their merits.
And as the reshuffled New South Wales cabinet emerged, with Peter Cox taking over Public Works, Mr Brereton reverted to being simply member for Heffron. But he told a group of senior citizens it wouldn't always be that way.
The disappointments of yesterday are transformed into the triumphs of tomorrow.
The week brought a minor tactical victory for Bob Hawke in the privatisation debate. But it came only after protracted late-night negotiations with the centre-left faction, which finally agreed to soften its anti-privatisation stance. The final motion, passed by caucus, called on ministers to report on the viability of major government enterprises under full public ownership. The purpose of that, to ensure a wider public understanding of the issues involved.
We now have a position which establishes more clearly than there was before that there is going to be a wide-ranging discussion within the party, which is what I want.
But with the majority of his party still opposed to privatisation, the debate remains far from over.
His party's thrown him a lifebuoy that looks full of holes.
It was revealed this week that Australia may become involved in the Persian Gulf conflict. US Secretary of State George Shultz has called on Prime Minister Hawke to help protect shipping in the area. Mr Hawke stressed Australia's commitment would be minimal.
There will be no Australian ships sent to the Gulf. That's naval vessels.
Why is that?
Because we don't consider it appropriate.
It's expected Australia will send Navy divers to clear mines. In Kalgoorlie, the emotional funeral of 20-year-old Bernard McGrath, who last week became the 21st Aborigine to die in custody in Western Australia since 1980. A fellow prisoner, Neville Wayne Galbraith, appeared in court on a charge of unlawfully helping McGrath to kill himself. He was remanded for 7 days. Also this week, Western Australia launched its own inquiry into Aboriginal deaths. But with only 8 weeks to report its findings, the 6-member committee is unable to visit locations or interview witnesses.
I have not had much of a life, but I just want to get a story across. That's all I want.
Well, we certainly the people to help you do that.
The most bizarre of stories, a man who rang the Willacy show claiming he was responsible for the murder of 42-year-old Melbourne nurse Alexandra Good. In an arranged meeting, the man told a Willacy reporter that business troubles had forced him to approach the woman for money.
I said, I won't hurt you, which I didn't. I didn't physically, you know what I mean? I didn't violate the woman's rights. I didn't rape her or nothing like that. What's upset me today is because I read The Sun, and they said the Anita Copy thinger, and I mean, that set me off. And I thought, well, I mean, I haven't done nothing like that.
The interview came to an abrupt end when this happened.
Not bad?
You're under arrest.
Oh, thanks very much.
The man was remanded in custody until February. An innovative escape attempt from Sydney's Long Bay Jail. A convicted armed robber tried to foil warders by leaving behind a life-size dummy. But the decoy was just too impassive.
We have to check that they're not only present but also alive and well. There's absolutely no movement from this prisoner.
The prisoner was later found hiding in an industrial bin. In the latest America's Cup controversy, a United States Supreme Court endorsed a New Zealand challenge to race the Cup next year, 3 years early, and in super maxi yachts.
We're looking at boats 120, 140 feet long, 2.5 times the size of the 12-metre class yachts, which have traditionally been the America's Cup vessels since 1958.
And while the Kiwi yacht is already well underway, back home Ben Lexon has begun designing the Bond boat despite possible impediments.
The San Diego Yacht Club still have to conduct the series, and they can accept or deny people who have challenged them. I mean, they have to accept the New Zealand challenge, but they don't necessarily have to accept ours.
Still unknown whether San Diego will appeal the decision.
If it has to be raced in 90-foot boats, I think the New Zealand's going to be surprised as to how competitive America is in 90-foot boats, and they're going to go home to New Zealand with empty hands and bowed heads.
And it was the week the hit musical of the year finally reached Australia. Before a first-night crowd of political and media glitterati, the cast of Les Miserables sang their way through 3 hours of memorable musical history. Also memorable, that amazing week in Queensland. That's next.
See you, Keith. You might reckon that the great American prairie land is a funny place for an Australian company to be looking for oil. It's 100 degrees in the shade in the summer and 20 below in the winter. Though BHP spend most of their exploration budget in Australia, they've spread their wings around the world, in Africa, Asia, South America, Europe, even China.
In fact, here in North America, BHP is already one of the largest independent oil and gas producers. And though the oil discovered here will end up in Chevrolets rather than Holdens, the profit on every tankful will make Australia stronger. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Phil. And I think that's a pretty good investment in Australia's future. Colorado, part of Australia's BHP.
The brilliance of smooth, clean aerodynamics. The luxury of a large, high-performance saloon. The swift, smooth power of a V6. Drive the all-new V6 3-litre fuel-injected Mazda 929 with 3-year warranty. Your decision as to which large, high-performance saloon you should choose is now significantly easier.
Dip, 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 and spread. It's tastier. Dip, 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 and spread. It's tastier.
Kraft use only the best ingredients. You got it? The best to make Kraft dip and spread the tastier dip.
Dip, 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 and spread. It's tastier.
I see he's putting on another 2 stories. Oh, to think, only 3 years ago he started off in a building not unlike this one. Apparently his bank had a lot to do with his success.
Bank? Which bank?
Only Fast Forward's computer system monitors your parcel every step of the way. All the others can offer is a wing and a prayer. Fast Forward from Australian Cargo. No faster way to get it there same day.
Now to the first of our reports on the story that's held Australians from Darwin to Devonport, Cape Leeuwin to Cooktown agog and not a little bemused. The state of confusion in the Sunshine State. Confusion unprecedented, even in Australia's tumultuous constitutional history. Queensland has a Premier who is not leader of his party, a party leader who is not Premier. And to predict the next move of Sir Joe Bjelke-Petersen, so long the maverick of Australian politics, seems unwise. What we can do, though, is unravel the many crossed threads of this crazy week in Queensland.
I cannot continue in good government with the leaks, with the disloyalty that I've had to experience for so long.
I'm announcing today a challenge for the leadership of the Parliamentary National Party in Queensland.
Why should I resign or why should I go it alone? I'm an elected, I've been elected as Premier. We've done a very, very good job. We had good election results and we've operated effectively.
I advise that as Deputy Premier I will be seeking the endorsement of my parliamentary colleagues to become Premier.
No, I'm not irrational. I'm very, very soundly balanced in what I'm doing.
I have to tell you in summary, the wheels are back under the green and gold bus.
The main players in this most remarkable game of political poker, a game that seems to have been dealt its final hand last Tuesday. Citing disloyalty, Sir Joe attempted to sack 5 of his cabinet ministers: Deputy Premier Bill Gunn, Health Minister Micah Hearn, Mines Minister Brian Austin, Tourism Minister Jeff Muntz, and Industry Minister Peter McKechnie. Initially refusing to withdraw their commissions, Queensland Governor Sir Walter Campbell finally agreed to dismiss 3 of the ministers: McKechnie, Austin and Ahern. For the former Health Minister, the sackings were not simply the result of disloyalty.
I am concerned that the action that's been taken this morning are machinations in respect of the eventual outcome of the Fitzgerald inquiry in Queensland.
Are you fearful that that commission won't continue the way you want it?
I am fearful in the current climate that it will not have the outcome that the people of Queensland are looking for if this situation is to proceed unchallenged.
Using the Fitzgerald inquiry as a catalyst for his leadership challenge, Mr. Ahern proceeded to ladle scorn on Sir Joe for his timing of the sackings.
To wait, as has been done, for the Parliament to rise, and when parliamentary meetings are postponed automatically because of the parliamentary recess, in my view, is total disrespect for the parliamentary party and its institutions.
And like the nation's media, National Party members came scrambling back to Brisbane, with most showing little respect for their leader of the past 19 years.
I said last night, and I say again, that I find it extraordinary that someone of his political nous could be so You must have sold a lot of newspapers.
Well, I think probably the Premier sold the newspapers.
Quite true, yes, and everything that happened is his doing too and not ours.
There were even those who questioned Sir Joe's faculties.
The man needs help and he needs support.
What sort of help?
I'm not saying.
But amidst the wail of opposition, a faint cry of support for Sir Joe, most notably from Education Minister Lynn Powell.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with the Premier's health. And anybody claiming to be so ought to be psychoanalysed themselves, as far as I'm concerned.
And of course, from Senator Flo.
That he has, over the past number of months, had to watch his back, and you cannot go forward doing things for Queensland and making progress while you're looking behind you. You've got to look forward and you've got to look ahead.
Throughout it all, the Premier remained silent, appearing only to travel to Government House to swear in new ministers or to have deposed those who would depose him. But deposed he was. At a meeting of the Parliamentary National Party on Thursday, Bill Gunn was re-elected Deputy Leader and Micah Hearn Party Leader.
The new government in Queensland will be an innovative government. It will be a government which puts people first.
The situation is we'll be working in unison, we'll be working together, and we will win the next election.
But to do that, there was and still remains one hitch.
There is leadership in the parliamentary sphere which has been elected by an overwhelming majority of members, and there is a Premier who still retains a commission from the Governor. That is an untenable position.
Unable to draw Governor Sir Walter Campbell into the fray by sacking Sir Joe, the National Party leaders called instead for Sir Joe to retire. But the Premier was having none of that.
I don't know what you're all coming around for, because I'm still going to be here.
We like taking pictures of you, Joe.
Yeah.
I think you've won the day.
Thank you. Beg your pardon?
Will you be Premier next week?
Yeah, I'll be still Premier here. I'll be at Cabinet meeting. I don't know what you're all fussing about.
By week's end, however, the Premier's resolve appeared to be waning. He left Brisbane to spend the weekend at Kingaroy, seeking the advice of his family.
Oh, I know what that advice is. They'd like to see a lot more of me.
The grandchildren especially.
Yes, they will.
For Senator Flo, it was more a philosophical decision.
I mean, it's a parliamentary process, isn't it? And I mean, that's what elections are all about, and voting's all about. I mean, sometimes you win them and sometimes you lose them.
Also leaving town for the weekend, Racing Minister Russ Hinds, off to Tokyo, not on a political mission, but to see a horse race.
I've made all the arrangements that are necessary with the present Premier and the incoming Premier, so all my clearances are in place. No problems.
So there is time for fun?
Well, they said there's time to play bowls and beat the Spaniards, there.
Next, Laurie Oakes will talk with Brian Austin, one of the Queensland ministers whose sackings precipitated the crisis for Sir Joe.
Beginning Monday night, 6:30, with Elizabeth Hayes, the issues of the day, Jane Phelan, John Collis and Tracy Grimshaw on the spot, reporting, investigating right across Australia.
I'm Elizabeth Hayes. Join me Monday night for 6:30.
Sydney's leading hour of news and current affairs from 6 o'clock on Channel 9.
Wow. Send a parcel interstate overnight, and you'll probably pay for the use of a private aeroplane. Whoa!
And to cut a long story short, be charged like a Mallee bull in penalty race for everyone who touches it. Truth!
So as I can assure you, money doesn't grow on trees. If it doesn't have to be there overnight, don't be ripped off. Send it parcel post. You'll save a packet.
Hello. If your business demands that you live out of a suitcase from time to time, you should really get yourself the Flag In-Club card. It means a minimum 10% discount on all your accommodation. It's free, and it's accepted at over 500 Flag Inns. How do you get one? Ring 008 335 005 now. Hello?
I told you not to ring me at work.
Have you noticed something happening, something going on around here?
Have you noticed there's a feeling
of something in the air?
Celebration of the nation.
Give us a hand.
Celebration of the nation. Let's make it grand.
Let's lend a hand and show the world how brave we all can be.
All those years of sweat and tears.
It's of ice and tangerine.
Celebration of the nation.
Give us a hand.
Celebration of the nation. Let's make it grand.
Let's make it great.
You can do it.
88. Come on, give us a hand.
How does St George's Freedom Visa credit card stack up against, well, any other credit card you care to name? For a start, the St George card means really low-cost credit. And because it's a Visa card, you could enjoy it at 5 million places around the world. It'll get you cash 24 hours a day, and you won't pay any joining fees or annual fees or joint card fees. If you want to see for yourself how well St George's Freedom stacks up, it'll cost you nothing to swap your others for it. Could be in time for Christmas.
What a great idea, St. George!
Tuesday,
What's going on here?
Murder Oriental Style on Remington Steel.
What could possibly go wrong?
Don't come any closer.
8:30 Tuesday on Channel 9.
The final act that led to Sir Joe Bjelke-Petersen's removal as leader of the Queensland National Party was his sacking of 3 cabinet ministers. They'd been disloyal, he said. Ironically, one of the sacked ministers was Brian Austin, whose defection from the Liberal Party after the 1983 election gave Sir Joe the numbers to govern in his own right. Mr. Austin is in our Brisbane studio this morning. Here to talk with him, Sunday's political editor, Laurie Oakes. Laurie?
Thanks, Jim. Mr. Austin, welcome back.
Thank you, Laurie.
The big question, will Joe go, or will he have to be dragged out kicking and screaming?
Oh, I don't think so. I think he's probably smart enough that he knows that he hasn't got the numbers. He's always been a numbers man. And finally, the numbers are up. He hasn't got the numbers, and really, in all sincerity, he must recognise that. And I think that if he goes tomorrow, he'll be managed to recover or keep, if you like, some of the prestige that he's entitled to. But if he really fights and kicks and so forth like that, I think he'll go out being remembered for that sort of thing rather than for the great things that he's done for the state.
Well, could he fight? I mean, what options are open to him if he decides he wants to fight?
Well, he hasn't got too many options open to him. There were, I think, 48 members in the room, and 48 members elected a new leader. He seems to be one out at the present time. I think he's getting advice from people to suggest that he ought to go into the Parliament and fight. Well, I think it'd be a shame if he did that, because it'd be really a shame to see him humiliated on the floor of the chamber.
What could he achieve if he did that? He'd presumably, to survive as Premier, he'd need 4 National Party defectors plus the support of the Liberal and Labor parties. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it?
Yes, it is a bit bizarre, seeing the Labor parties consistently attacked him during his reign. But I understand that he has spoken with Labor Party people and Liberal Party people in an attempt to gain their support.
At what level?
Well, I understand it's at leadership level. So it'll be interesting to see whether the leaders will confirm or deny that he has spoken to them. And as to what undertakings they've given them, I'm not sure. But really, it'd be hypocritical of the Labor Party, particularly if we went into a vote of no confidence in the Parliament and they supported the Premier.
It'd be extraordinary.
It would be unbelievable. It would be the death knell of the Leader of the Opposition, actually. I think he's gone now. He's pretty fragmented. He'd be totally shattered, I think, in the eyes of the party if he did that.
If Sir Joe did a deal with the Liberal and the Labor parties, what would be the aim? To survive as Premier, or to bring on an election that the National Party would presumably lose?
No matter what he does, he can't survive as Premier, and he has to recognise that. And in my view, he can't bring on an election even in the Parliament. I don't think the Governor would want to call an election. So I think it would serve no useful purpose. I think what it is at the moment, there's been some talk yesterday about him wanting to call an election. I think that's a threat, trying to frighten some of the backbench members, if you like, of the Parliament, that they might have to go to an election just 12 months after they've had one. And I think they should dismiss that possibility from their heads. It's simply a threat or coercion, trying to force them into, if you like, changing their vote to support him. And it's not going to happen.
I assume if there was an election in the present climate, the Nationals would be wiped out, wouldn't they?
I wouldn't have thought so, Laurie. The Labor Party is presently tearing itself to pieces up here. The Liberal Party had a vote, apparently, on their leadership, which was, I think, probably wasn't public knowledge. I understand that 3 of the people walked out of the meeting and they didn't have a quorum, so there could be no vote. So, I mean, the whole thing's in disarray at the present time.
The ministers are negotiating a retirement package with Sir Joe, we read. There's one headline this morning, for example, that says $1 million golden handshake. Is that true? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, Laurie, I'm not a part of that negotiating team. I'm not in the ministry, whilst I have been party to a lot of other negotiations in the back rooms. There is certainly some negotiations going on in that area, but the negotiations, I believe, will be limited to things that have been negotiated with retiring premiers in other states. And I doubt whether there'll be any more benefits offered than those that have been offered to incumbent premiers that have retired elsewhere.
That's an office, a car and a secretary, that sort of thing?
Yes, that's right. And I think the man's entitled to that. Well, simply, you can't serve 20 years as a premier of a state. He'd have an enormous amount of correspondence that has to be handled, and I think that he is entitled to be provided with that sort of facility.
Sure. What about things like use of the Queensland government jet? What would be the feeling in the party if that was part of the package?
That's not on, Laurie. It's not on at all.
And
I don't think it's even an option. That's a government jet. It's not for use of other people, and that's not on.
Something else that's been floated is a lump sum payment to make up for the fact that Sir Joe is not in the parliamentary superannuation scheme.
And in my view, I'm not in cabinet, but I would be opposed to that. That's not on either. He had his option to join the parliamentary superannuation scheme many years ago, elected not to do that, and quite obviously, with the contributions that members make, I think it's 11 or 12% of their salary, he would have had the use of those funds over his many years in Parliament, whilst others have had them locked away in a superannuation scheme. So it's not fair or reasonable to assume that there ought to be some lump sum payment because he's not in the scheme.
If he agrees to go quietly, is there any plan to give him a job, to use him, say, as a roving ambassador for Queensland, something like that?
Well, I don't think there's any plan for that, but I would hope that we might be able to find him some job, whether he goes quietly or not. I think the man still has obvious talents, and those talents ought to be used.
What about his health? I mean, there's been a lot of speculation since he precipitated this crisis about that. Well, what's your view? I mean, how is he?
Laurie, I'm a civil engineer. I'm not a doctor, and I don't propose to make any comment in relation to that, and I don't think other people will be making comments in that area either.
But you know him. Has he changed in the years you've known him?
He's changed in the last 6 months or so, but I suspect it really doesn't have too much to do with his health. I suspect it's got to do with his personal staff that's changed, and other people outside his personal staff that have been influencing his decisions.
What kind of people is he listening to now?
Well, Laurie, every time the Premier gets in some sort of difficulty, or that he has in the last couple of years, for example, the Joe for Canberra campaign and this present campaign, the people that I call the Fruity Loops, that's the League of Rights, the extreme right-wingers, come out of the woodwork everywhere. I understand that there's been some Fruity Loops visiting him in the last few days, and I'm a bit concerned when those sorts of people of that fringe group may have some sort of influence on the Premier.
Persuading him to fight back, you think?
Well, I'm pretty sure that, well, that's the only reason they'd be there for, telling him to fight back, and they'd be kidding him. In my mind, they're the same very people that kidded him that he could have his Joe for Canberra campaign, then when the crunch came to the crunch, they ran away from him and left him standing there.
What about Sir Joe's call to Buckingham Palace last Wednesday night? Have you any idea what that was for, what he wanted the Queen to do?
Not at all, Laurie. I have no idea. In fact, I wasn't even aware the call had been made till it was announced in the media that it had, and I think that's the only confirmation that it has been made. But I'd be surprised if the Queen would enter into something like this. The numbers are very clearly there. If she's being briefed, I presume she's been briefed, she would see that the Premier has been deposed as a parliamentary leader, and being deposed as the leader, there's no reason for her to intervene.
So, in your view, tomorrow is Sir Joe's last cabinet meeting, no matter what?
Well, I would hope so, Laurie, but I'm fairly anxious for Sir Joe to test his numbers on the floor of the Parliament, if that's what he wants, because he's not going to get the numbers.
There'll be no defections from the Nationals?
No, none at all, Laurie.
All right, well, let's look ahead and assume you're right, and Mike Ahern will become Premier in the next week. How will Queensland change under an Ahern government?
Well, Mr Ahern's already made certain statements in relation to it being more open government, if you like, but I think probably he's the leader of the party and he's probably better off answering those questions rather than me. I can't answer for him. At the present time, I'm on the back bench. But he has made certain public statements that he wants to see some change, and no doubt there will be changes. I think it's inevitable when you have a new leader, there will be changes.
Well, you're an insider, though. You've worked with both Sir Joe and Mr Ahern. Are they similar? Are they different? Make a comparison for us.
Totally different. Mike Ahern is the sort of fellow that wants people to come and tell him if he's doing something wrong or they think he's doing something wrong. He doesn't want you to kid to him. Sir Joe likes people to kid to him and saying, oh, you're doing a wonderful job, Premier, then they walk out the back door and say, that was a dreadful decision. Ahern is totally the opposite. If he thinks he's doing the wrong thing or the government's made an incorrect decision, he wants you to come straight forward and tell him. And he's already told members of the party there will be no repercussions. He wants to know from the backbench members and from the public what they really think about things and not be frightened to make those decisions.
Sir Joe obviously regarded him as a bit of a wimp. How tough is he?
Oh, he's pretty tough, all right. You don't go through what you've been through in the last couple of days unless you're pretty tough. You know, I think the last couple of days have proved all that nonsense about being a wimp and that's total rubbish. The man has to have an opportunity. He's now got that opportunity, and his performance in the last couple of days have been absolutely brilliant.
How's the Queensland government operating at the moment?
Well, quite obviously it's operating very well because the government itself, there are still, I think, what, 17 ministers sworn in. They would be doing their ministerial duties normally.
But who are they reporting to? Are they still reporting to Sir Joe as Premier, or are they reporting to Mike Ahern as de facto Premier?
Well, they're reporting to Joe in Cabinet because Joe's still the Premier, but Mike Ahern has made it very clear to those ministers that he wants no major decisions made within their portfolios whilst he is out of the Cabinet, and I think that's fair and reasonable. We are a bit fearful that some of the ministers, perhaps some of the new ones that the Premier's put in there, may try to get through some of the pet projects that the Premier's wanted to get through and couldn't get through with both myself and Mr Ahern being there.
A final question, Mr Austin. Last time you were on the program, you said the only way Sir Joe would go is if someone was prepared to have his blood on their hands. He's gone, so where's the blood? Whose hands is it on?
Well, it's on his own hands. I said I wasn't prepared to get his blood on my hands, and now he's got my political blood on his hands. But he made the fatal mistake, I believe, fatal political mistake, of sacking 5 ministers, 3 of whom were senior ministers, 1 of whom was the Deputy Premier. And what he did was, I don't think he believed, or his advisers believed, that those 3 people would get together and gather the numbers. Now, you can't underestimate the ability of senior ministers, if you like, within the Cabinet to gather numbers. He underestimated that, and that was his mistake.
And committed harakiri.
Exactly.
Thanks, Mr Austin.
Thank you, Laurie.
Back to you, Jim.
Thanks, Laurie. The former, and in all probability soon to be reinstated, Queensland Minister for Mines, Brian Austin, with Laurie Oakes. Next, the end of an era. A look at those Joe years.
At first glance, the similarities between these winning Hondas and this winning Honda may not be immediately apparent. All are built with Honda's legendary dedication to excellence. All have an unmatched heritage of technical achievement. And all are designed to perform superbly. Now, perhaps you mightn't need to win a Grand Prix, but with a Honda mower on your lawn. Honda lawnmowers. No other mower comes from such a famous family.
I fly one of these, but as I can't always fly the aircraft I want to fly, I subscribe to Aviation Profile. It's a video magazine that has civil and military aircraft, avionics, human interest stories, special topics, war zone, and of course News Desk. Aviation Profile gives me the facts about this great aviation industry. So join me. Phone this number now or look for the coupon in the current Australian Aviation magazine at your newsagent now.
Bright, glossy colour. It really can be stunning. Imagine how much brighter this kitchen would be with that kind of glow. A bit of blue here, yellow over here, and here you can use a softer colour.
Be the artist in your home. Use British Paint's Glossmaster in Gold Dust, New Slate and Peacock.
It looks great, and it'll last. Even your toughest critics can't knock that.
Trust British Paints.
You know, across this country for over 50 years, we've had a cheese that's eaten more than any other. Coon. It's Australia's tasty cheese. The cheese that's big enough to shred and grill and never go to waste. With the big taste that makes Coon Australia's most eaten cheese. So when it's cheese you're after, nothing beats Coon. It's Australian for tasty.
Has your credit card ever failed to give you all the credit you need? Has it ever been less acceptable than the world's most widely accepted card? Has it ever been rejected, even where it's displayed? Then get the one card that's all cards in one, ANZ Visa. The only credit card you'll ever need.
Over the years, most of us have heard it and heard it often. The line, but he's done a lot for Queensland, added as a rider to even the most trenchant popular criticism of Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen's policies and practices. But like most catchphrases, it's long on rumour, short on reality. For in spite of Sir Joh's litany of lower taxes and smaller government, Queensland has some of the highest state charges in Australia, and its private economy is excessively regulated by marketing and price controls. Justin Murphy compiled this potted history of what Sir Joh did for Queensland and for Australia.
You can't walk along a barbed wire fence with a foot in each paddock in each party. They tell me it's most uncomfortable. I think they're finding it pretty uncomfortable at the moment.
They can count his marbles there without distressing any of us.
I haven't lost any marbles at all. I don't have any, as a matter of fact.
It's hard to imagine now that for nearly 2 decades, Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen has been a power in Australian politics, rolling round the deck like a loose cannon, disarming his opponents with a seemingly simple faith in the virtues of free enterprise and rural life, yet loaded with a political cunning that his many victims were too slow to notice. Born in New Zealand, the son of Danish immigrants, Johannes Bjelke-Petersen was elected to the Queensland Parliament in 1947. It was a tribute to his talent that he spent 16 years on the back bench, before being rewarded with the unspectacular Ministry of Works and Housing. But on the sudden death of Queensland Premier Jack Pizzey in 1968, Joh was chosen as stopgap leader, a position he clung to in the face of several early challenges. It was the election of the Whitlam Labor government in 1972 that cemented Joh's leadership by giving his ardent anti-socialism a national forum.
Well, we speak out on issues that are of national value and national importance, and I think you'll agree I've done that, and I'll continue to do it.
Some in the Labor Party recognised the enemy.
Oh, he's got more twists than a bottle of worms, Bjelke-Petersen. Nobody'd follow his reasoning. He's an unusual person.
Others did not. When Whitlam tried to wrest control of the Senate by appointing the DLP's Vince Gare, himself a former Queensland Premier, as ambassador to Ireland, the hayseed from Kingaroy outsmarted him. Whitlam's aim was to win Gare's seat for Labor in a half-Senate election. But Joh moved too quickly, issuing the election writs before Gare had resigned. ensuring that the Queensland government would nominate Gair's successor.
So they all came up, half a dozen of them, with armfuls of books, legal men. And they said, you can't do it, Mr. Premier. If you do, you'll find you've got no senators in the morning. We had till midnight to do it. We argued till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I said, let's get on with the job and argue about it afterwards.
Having tasted blood, Joe went for the jugular, appointing his puppet, Albert Field, to Canberra in 1975 on the death of a Labor senator, an appointment that enabled the opposition to block supply and topple the Whitlam government.
Do by this my proclamation dissolve the Senate and the House of Representatives.
Well, I always ask every day God to guide, forgive and guide us in one's thinking and what we say and we do. And I'm not ashamed of it. I believe it, and I know it has a big effect in what our attitudes and so on.
The political philosophy of Bjelke-Petersen was deceptively homespun, almost populist. The source of truth and wisdom lay in honest, hard-working country folk who are the innocent victims of taxes, unions, and bureaucracies. The political reality was an autocratic, authoritarian Bjelke-Petersen. In Joe's cabinet, disagreement was branded treachery. Parliament he held in such disdain that, in the last 4 years of his reign, he summoned it for an average of only 43 days a year. A contempt no doubt born of his electoral gerrymander, which enabled him to govern on only 36% of the vote.
Now, what's wrong with one vote, one value?
Simply because I value the importance of people who live inland, whether they're in a country town or not.
Are they superior people?
Yes, they are very good people in the sense that they, I know you'd like me to say they're superior, but they earn the biggest part of our export earnings. Here in Queensland, we are the biggest export earners of any state of Australia. All those that are cuckoo or got rocks in their head support the socialists.
Let's go back. Go back. Go back.
Dissenters, such as those who opposed the Springbok rugby tour in 1971, were answered with a police state. In the later 1970s, even the right of assembly disappeared in Joe's Queensland. With the level of public dissent rising all over Australia, he banned pavement gatherings and street marches.
And it does look as if we are trying to control people, as it were, in their lives, but it's not so. We're trying to maintain a freedom for the majority.
But it was the unions that felt hardest the heel of Joe's jackboot. When striking electricity workers threatened to bring the state to a halt, they were simply sacked, and their pickets and protests mercilessly broken up.
These people, they've had their day. They've been to the top. And I speak about the Milton Union leaders, not the rank and file. The rank and file want to work. They don't want to lose a day's pay. We're on their side.
But many saw Joe's purpose as less altruistic. His real aim, to destabilise the Hawke Labor government by inciting industrial unrest throughout Australia. But with Whitlam's fate still fresh in his memory, Prime Minister Hawke refused the bait.
I think the man is sick if he's got to get down in the gutter like that. I mean,
Pussy, you ready? Pussy, 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 pussy. Pussy.
The family farm at Kingaroy, Joe's favourite retreat from politics. But a peaceful environment for other Queenslanders was not on his agenda. He tried and failed to mine the dunes on Fraser Island, tried and failed to drill the Barrier Reef for oil, tried and failed to sell many of the resort islands to private owners. But Joe did succeed in driving a road through the Daintree rainforest despite the protests. And didn't even wait for the protests when he had Brisbane's historic Bellevue Hotel demolished in the early hours of morning.
Birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear father, happy birthday to you. There you are, that's for you to go.
Year in, year out, the Queensland Premier seemed to live in a timeless land. Not even a knighthood could change the old common touch.
Is the honour going to change your lifestyle in any way?
No, it didn't change me. I'm Joe Bjelke-Petersen. Everybody knows that.
But almost imperceptibly, the years were beginning to take their toll, and once familiar foibles became downright bizarre. When New Zealand's nuclear-free policy upset the ANZUS alliance, Joe retaliated with a ban on New Zealand chocolates.
Joe Bjelke-Petersen has declared Queensland a chocolate-free state.
His always Puritan morality became sterner still. He ordered police to raid family planning clinics in a Keystone Cops operation that was repeated more recently at the University of Queensland, where condom vending machines were ripped from the walls.
Why not suggest to these people that they stop that horrible lifestyle that they're living in, these homosexuals and these sort of people? Why don't you suggest that? Let's come clean. Elizabeth, I thought you looked a decent sort of a girl. You don't mean to tell me you're in that category.
The National Party of Australia, Queensland, fully supports the move by Sir Joe Bjelke-Petersen to attain the Prime Ministership so that he can put in place an anti-socialist federal government equipped with appropriate policies and the will to implement those policies which are so patently necessary to save this nation from economic and political ruin.
The end of the Joe era began with his foray into federal politics. Ironically, thumping the same tub that had served him so well on the Queensland stump.
To get away from the Liberals and their high tax policy, now to open the road, the gate, so that we as a national party across the nation can put together, well, what has to be put together further than what has been in all the states, to come out with the policies that people of Australia want. Low taxes, control of militant union leaders, and give an incentive and a hope and an opportunity for the people of this nation.
The Joe juggernaut hit the road in the Northern Territory and promptly ran over not the federal Labor government, but his own side of politics. Having tossed the Queensland Liberals out of his government in 1983, Joe now drove a wedge through the federal coalition with his call for a flat tax.
He will go down in history as the great wrecker of the Conservative side of politics, not a man of vision and achievement, but a man who, for his own selfish power desires, is prepared to embark upon a wrecking course.
And so it proved. For though Joe soon withdrew from the fray, the disordered coalition he left behind crashed to defeat in the July election. And back in his own bailiwick, defeat was catching up with Joe himself. The whiff of scandal that had for so long surrounded his government has become a stench, as the Fitzgerald inquiry into police corruption in Queensland gets daily closer to his cronies.
I am Premier of Queensland.
But the later Bjelke-Petersen years will be remembered chiefly for Joe speak. The scarcely coherent ramblings of an old man feeding his chooks, as he called the media. Bumblings that, sadly, had us laughing at him, not with him.
Who wants to stick together with them and get your sticky feet? You know, if you get your foot on sticky paper, you get both of them on, you fall over.
Here on Sunday, Sir Joe scattered much hen meal over the years. This offering was one of his last.
I know the people, the socialists and the conglomeration of right wing, left wing, old guard, new guard, majority group, centre group, and all the rest of them, the mud guard, all of those groups, they are...
The Bjelke-Petersen years, and we make no apology for being selective in that report. 2 decades of history in 10 minutes must, by necessity, be so. We said nothing of the Brisbane Commonwealth Games or Expo 88, a story we reported only last month. And it must be remembered that until a year or two ago, Sir Joe was regarded by friend and foe alike as the best politician in the country. Nor did we delve into the many allegations of irregularities that dogged his government over the years, or the politicisation of the public service. Next on Sunday, our cover story, Joe's People.
Monday, 7:30.
Get your rat faces! Boy rats over here, girl rodents over there.
Little Janice holds a party, but...
What are we going to play, Janice? Spread the plague?
The head of the class is not pleased. Then at 8...
Can't have a guy spend the night with Patty living here?
My sister Sam's desperate for love.
I had that problem when Vic and I were dating. Once my youngest walked in on us. I told her we were arguing while our clothes were in the wash.
Top Comedy, Monday on 9.
It's the annual review of NEC Computers, and it seems they're still the world's biggest manufacturer of integrated circuits. they're still one of the world's top 10 computer companies. And here to report on the Australian market is Mr. Okamura. Mr. Okamura.
Telephone for a Mr. Okamura?
NEC, Japan's most experienced computer company, now very much at home in Australia.
Cadbury Milk Tray Chocolates. Strawberry cream. Hazelnut whirl. Smooth peppermint cream. Cherry ripe.
You can taste the exclusive quality of Cadbury Milk Tray Chocolates. All smothered in delicious, creamy Cadbury Dairy Milk Chocolate.
Turkish Delight. Hazelnut fondant. Vanilla caramel.
Cadbury Milk Tray Chocolates. A gift of good taste.
I see he's putting up another 2 stories. Isn't he doing well?
I see he's putting another 2 stories on. Business must be booming. You went to school with him, didn't you?
I see he's putting on another 2 stories. Oh, to think, only 3 years ago he started off in a building not unlike this one. Apparently his bank had a lot to do with his success. Bank? Which bank?
Only Fast Forward has a computer system that warns if a parcel is delayed by even 10 minutes. Wonder what the others rely on. Fast Forward from Australian Cargo. No faster way to get it there same day.
This cool break is brought to you by the only car air conditioning designed for and guaranteed by Holden. Holden Air Conditioning. Your Holden can have it fitted at very cool prices. Right now at your Holden dealer. Be cool. Be Holden wise.
Welcome back. The first story we screened in this year of Sundays was about Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen. Way back in February, the Queensland Premier embarked on his ill-fated foray into federal politics. And Charles Woolley was with him when he tested his popularity in the Northern Territory. This week, Charles was back on the Joh watch, but this time to report a political death knock. He went to Kingaroy, home and heartland of the Premier, a small country town where memories are long, loyalties longer. Joh's People is his report, and it's our cover story this Sunday.
The Premier was driven to Government House around lunchtime, apparently to ask Sir Walter Campbell to withdraw the commissions of Ahern, Deputy Premier Bill Gunn, and 3 other ministers.
Like every reporter who rushed to Queensland this week, I was asking myself, how many times have you been here before, drawn by reports of the imminent demise of Joh? But this time, it does seem different. Never before have events moved so quickly. In Brisbane, the story would have been out of date even before it could be told. So I'm out here, looking for the story behind the story. With only a toothbrush and a clean shirt, I've hastened to Kingaroy, to the heartland of Joh Bjelke-Petersenism, to seek out Joh's people, to try to understand the phenomenon before it vanishes forever. My first contact with Joh's world was the peanut van on the very threshold of the town. It's a well-known Kingaroy attraction, as is its proprietor, Ruth Davis.
Curried peanuts?
Yes.
And they're going to make you rich, you reckon?
Oh, yes.
Why?
Well, they're the world's best.
They're delicious.
Yes.
10 years ago, Ruth had nothing but a widow's pension. Today, she runs a thriving business, employing several people.
I believe that everything I've got here in this humble little peanut empire has been what God has taught me. I'd say to the Lord, I even say it every day, now, Lord, what do you reckon about this one? Show me. I've had people say to me, my word, that was a canny move. And I'd say, yes, wasn't it? I'm sorry if it sounds naive, but he shows me.
This is indeed the Bible Belt. And in good Protestant tradition, commerce and godliness go hand in hand. In the same way that Joh claims to consult higher authority on aspects of state policy, so too does Ruth invoke the deity on matters perhaps a little more mundane.
I remember trying to crack the secret of good sugar-coated peanuts. And I threw out, I don't know how many kilos of peanuts. And I finally said to him, Lord, you'd better come and fix this up smartly. If I don't have good sugar-coated peanuts, that does not glorify you.
Certainly they taste divine, with God as a product developer, What business could fail to thrive? Now, of course, the worldly will laugh at all this, but it's objective truth that religion is a great motivator. It's worked for Ruth, and until now, for Joe.
Nothing can touch us unless God allows it to. You might have a leg cut off, and you might say, well, that can't happen to me unless God allowed it to, but it still hurts. And I really think that people who have acted despicably to him, men without honour.
If there's one word, one image that symbolises all the fears that Joe's people are feeling today, it's that faintly ridiculous item, the condom. And Ruth isn't the only person I met who believes that with Joe gone, the condom is about to replace the peanut as the town's most ubiquitous object.
These condom machines, I think they're the most disgusting things out. Some friends of mine went over to Toowoomba and said they saw them on the streets. Now, why should decent people, or any sort of people, have to look at those sort of things?
But this is a major health problem that's being confronted.
Well, there's one way to fix up major health problems in this area, Charles, and that is to sex inside of marriage. Now, that's the way we were. God created us. He knows which way we work, and he laid down the rules. It's like me getting that car there and trying to put metho in the petrol tank, and then rouse because it doesn't go up the hills.
In the search for understanding, I enter unfamiliar territory, there to meet a Lutheran minister, Pastor Ken Schmidt, in the very church where Joe worships. I asked Pastor Schmidt for a biblical image of Joe, and without hesitation, he suggested Moses.
Moses was very much a moral leader, and he led the people for 40 years through the wilderness wanderings. He led them and gave them the 10 Commandments from God. They didn't always like it, but he still presented God's word to them, and even though they bucked against it often, they respected him because he sought God's guidance, wisdom, strength, and had the moral courage to lead the people.
Of course, Moses too had to be told when to quit, didn't he?
He did. That was interesting too, and I pondered over that. Yes, he got to the River Jordan, and then he went up onto the mountain. He was able to look across the Jordan, but sadly he wasn't able to lead the people into the Promised Land.
So the Promised Land of Expo 88 and the Bicentenary have been denied to Joe, though whether by God's will or by the machinations of the National Party is a moot point. I also wanted to know whether it was possible that Joe's fundamental Christian values might have finally undone him politically. The separation of the church and the state is at the basis of our political system. Many people would think that it's not appropriate that spiritual values should be imposed on a political state.
I think this has been one of the things that has caused the Premier a great deal of anxiety, particularly if people are moving away from the Christian faith into free thought, into self-indulgence. Then they'll want to satisfy the natural desires of natural man, and they won't like the commands of God.
Of course, I can remember when Gough Whitlam called Joe a Bible-bashing, well, I better not swear in church. But a lot of people feel like that, don't they, about politics and religion being mixed?
Well, I question that. I think Joe is a man who has shown deep moral courage. I don't think there's anybody in Australian politics or in leadership, in many respects, who has had the moral courage that he's had. And I still believe within Queensland the silent majority still are in favour of the principles which he has fought so hard for.
I can only speculate on what it is that makes that connection between the soil and the church. Perhaps it's the timelessness of agriculture, or maybe even the sheer loneliness of it. Perhaps it's something to do with working beneath these great cathedrals of sky, or depending on the uncertain elements. Whatever it is, you'll find across Australia, wherever the soil is like this, deep and rich, that the church has firmly taken root. from Katanning in Western Australia to the Barossa, to the Wimmera, to the Darling Downs, and finally up here to the land around Kingaroy, the land they call Joe's Country. Joe's Country is some of our richest farmland. It's officially known as the South Burnett, and it stretches for 200 square kilometres around Kingaroy. At this time of year, it's a spreading patchwork quilt of green, brown and red corduroy paddocks. It's also a land of churches. This small corner of Australia contains 12 Lutheran churches alone, whose congregations farm the rich volcanic soils 20 to 30 feet deep. They grow cereals and beans and peanuts. Joe's Country is, in fact, the baked bean and peanut capital of Australia. And if the country's good, so are the people. Like the land, generous, open and friendly. You can't help liking them. Darryl, I'm actually coming to understand that in rich red soil like this, that Lutheranism flourishes.
Yeah, farmers usually rely on, their Lord or God and Christianity to get by. We depend on the rain and the weather, the sunshine, and naturally we can do everything in our power, but if we don't get those elements, well, that's why we have to rely on God to supply what we need.
I'm with Darryl Fresser. Darryl Fleiss Fresser, actually, but he's contracted his name for convenience from that brought here from Europe by his Lutheran forebears a century ago.
Joe, well, I've known him all my life, and I guess he's the person that we've sort of treated as just someone that's been always there. I've always looked up to him as a really true God-fearing man.
Knee-deep in Joe's Country, with Joe's people, I start to realise that it's not just change that they're resisting. To them, the demise of Joe is a threat to their whole way of life. After Joe, the deluge.
You can still live with the times, but you've got to have good, sound Christian morals. And our standard of living is deteriorating. We're starting to live like animals. Animals live better in some cases, but, with the morals that have been, that we see happening throughout our community.
You have a cup of tea?
And so to morning tea with Trevor and Diane Campbell, peanut farmers and Lutherans, and of course, it goes without saying, ardent admirers of Joe.
It is a sad time, really, because he's been leader of the National Party now, for some 20 years, 25 years. And now all of a sudden, he's gone, and it's a real sad thing, because I think Joe was a great leader.
We share virtually all of his beliefs. When it comes down to that, we do. We virtually do support in just about everything, particularly in areas of morality and religion.
Trevor, you're 40 years old, and Diane, of course, is younger. For the whole of your lives out here in Joe's Country, you've known no other political influence, no one else other than Joe. He's been here for that whole time.
No, that's right, because Joe was here when we were little children, like Diane pointed out before, and he's still here today. And we've grown up with Joe's government.
I thought it strange in Joe's Country that at 76, no one considered it might be time for him to bow out. But a visit to the Kingaroy Cemetery answered the question. It's simply that people live forever out here. It must be the sensible, moderate Lutheran lifestyle, clean living. At 76, a man can reasonably see many productive years stretching ahead. A case in point is country shopkeeper George Teigel. He's been running his little store in the back blocks of Joe Country for 50 years. He's pushing 80 and he won't retire, even though Mrs. Teigel wishes he would. Is it true that the old blokes in this part of the world aren't prepared to give up, to stop, if they want to go on? And
doesn't look like it. They seem as though they want to go on and on. I know this fellow wants to.
Well, why are they like that?
I don't know.
Well, if you stop, you die.
I don't know whether stubbornness with them or not.
Where are you going to go when you retire?
go somewhere else to die. Is that how you put it?
And do you think that's what Joe thinks? That's how he's feeling at the moment?
Oh, well, Joe's all over the place. He's hardly ever home, is he?
Mm.
And, oh, well, Joe mightn't last so very long if he's got to come home and sit down, but I don't think he will. He'll do something.
Before you consider yourself retired around here, you've got to be positively ancient. And people to whom we'd give the status of senior citizens are considered relative youngsters. They take on the job of looking after the real old folk. Such workers as CWA ladies, Ferris, Joyce and Dulcie. All of them friends and dedicated supporters of Joe and Flo.
I admire both of them.
What is it that you admire about them?
Oh, well, what would you say, Dulce?
Well, I could say their simplicity and their straight-out honesty. Now, Flo has had her family attend the local schools, and she does her share in the tuck shop. She always turned up and worked there. And there's certainly no fuss and no flies on Joe. You can go out and approach Joe anytime.
It's very easy
and bring him up. There's no answering service. If he's there, it is Joe that you get.
Where is Australia going to go if we're not going to be under Christian, have Christian principles and have people, in charge?
And yet a lot of other people say that that religion should have nothing to do with government.
Oh, rubbish. It has everything to do with everything.
As the tea and the scones continued to go down, so too did the tone of the conversation. And in no time they were talking about them again. Condoms.
Right. And another thing now, we get the condom issue pushed in us in all directions. Nobody bothers to think about what happens to the condom when the young couple are finished with it and it's left lying on the ground for small children to come around and pick up in parks.
Dulcie, the world's changed though, hasn't it?
I know the world has changed.
A few years ago, you wouldn't have had a nice old lady be prepared to talk about a condom on television, would you?
But the thing, it doesn't. When I was young, you could buy condoms over the shop at the chemist. I'm a trained nurse, and I knew that. And the thing is that now they're just saying, well, okay, go and plug into the machine like you're getting a bit of chewing gum, and get out your condom. Well, who's today? They must go along that day thinking, oh, wacko, I'll have some sex today. Bingo, away we go. And it doesn't work that way. It's just like an animal, isn't it? We're a bit higher than the animal.
Everybody wants to talk to me about sex and condoms. It's not what I'd have expected in Joe country.
You wouldn't like your children to run out in the street and say, oh, wacko, here, go and get a condom. Oh, right, here's this bloke. Get on to him and have a bit of sex.
Here's National 9 Morning News.
It's been a sad week for the ladies. At first, they couldn't believe it would really happen. But I was with them when the reality of the situation finally became apparent.
Deputy Premier Bill Gunn, formerly the Premier's staunchest ally, admits the Premier has no hope.
He will tough it out right to the end. But there's one thing certain, and he must know, you can't ignore the wishes of the majority. And the vast majority, and I say the vast majority, are against him on this one.
His loyalty's been the bottom of the trouble.
I have no intentions of resigning under any circumstances.
His members haven't stood behind him. I think they're just jabbing him in the back.
To sack Governor Suwalda.
I feel really sorry for him. It's not a political part, it's just Joe personally. That's all. I think they've hurt him very deeply.
I'd like to have stayed for more tea and commiserations, but a deadline was calling, and there was time for only one more stop. Back to the peanut van to purchase some Joe memorabilia, for surely these would soon be in short supply. Had the news already gone out across the world? There were foreigners here buying things up. But then Joe was always a great one for foreign investment. He would probably have approved. Before I could say goodbye to Ruth, the peanut lady, she insisted that no visit to Joe country was complete without a visit to Bethany, the home of Joe and Flo. And so, in the golden, fading light, I went to pay my last respects. From a discreet distance, of course. So there's a Joe tourist industry?
Oh, yes. Yes, I would.
The memorabilia that you sell in the shop?
Yes.
all that'll go.
Yes, it will, won't it?
Although initially
Probably.
it'll become collector's items, won't it?
Probably.
I mean,
That's
you're not going to print any more now,
Thank you,
are you?
Charles. That's a good selling.
So you're
Right.
sad to see him go?
Yes, I am very
Both,
sad. Yes.
as you say,
Yes.
as a Christian
Yes.
and a supporter, and
Yes.
also as a businesswoman.
That's right. I miss out everyone.
Joe's People was our cover story this Sunday, reported by Charles Woolley, research Margaret Roberts. Next, films with Peter Thompson.
How's business? If you're in business, you'll appreciate the value of this offer. It's from Business Review Weekly, Australia's authority on business and investment. Become a BRW subscriber now and you'll save up to 44% on the regular newsstand price. You'll also receive free for 1 year a monthly 8-page newsletter, Finance Hotline. Plus, you'll be given this inspiring 100-page book on the success secrets of Australia's top corporate achievers. To become a BRW subscriber, phone now on 02 212 0009. To repeat, save up to 44%, receive free BRW's Finance Hotline newsletter and the book on success secrets. It's like a toolkit for business success. As well, you'll receive this 24-karat gold stamped pen. All of this is yours as part of the BRW's exclusive subscription offer. Don't wait for business hours. Call this number now and for only $75 become an informed BRW subscriber. Major credit cards only. BRW, the authority.
C'est périlleux. C'est rafraîchissant.
It can project you to 100 kilometers per hour in 7.7 seconds. It sets new standards in automotive technology and design. It features sophisticated ABS braking. Drive the unique experience that is the all-new 2.2-litre fuel-injected, intercooled, turbocharged Mazda MX-6 with 3-year warranty. It's one of a kind.
One company is leading the world in the off-site manufacture of wet area modules, such as bathrooms, toilets, laundries and kitchens. Australian Stratacore. Custom built to your architects' and engineers' specifications, the modules are delivered on time and on budget with one simple contract. For high-rise, they're steel-frame Stratacore. For single-level, timber home core, both giving substantial savings. Wet area modules from Australian Stratacore, the developer's cost-effective answer.
Now to films, and this morning a preview of what Peter Thompson believes will be one of the must-see Christmas releases. Called Fatal Attraction, it's from the director of 9½ Weeks, Adrian Lyne. Here's Peter's review.
This is very much an advanced preview of a movie you'll be hearing lots about. There hasn't been an American thriller as good since Witness dazzled everyone more than 2 years ago. Fatal Attraction hits a raw nerve, already painfully exposed by the global threat of AIDS and to a lesser extent perhaps by the Puritan backlash purportedly taking place in Western society. It's familiar ground for movie makers, the dire consequences of the casual affair, the one-night stand. But what writer James Dearden and director Adrian Lyne have done is to neatly turn the conventional plotline on its head. In movies, as in life, it's usually men who are the sexual predators. But Dan Gallagher, a happily married lawyer, finds himself the object of a stranger's interest, and he's flattered.
My name is Dan Gallagher.
Alex Forrest.
Nice to meet you. What is your connection here?
I'm an editor at Robinson Heights. And you?
Well, I'm with Miller, Goodman, and Hearst. I do all your legal work. I haven't seen you around their office, though.
I've just been with them a couple of weeks.
I have to go.
Is that your wife?
Yeah.
Better run along.
It was very nice to meet you. Oh, give me a break, huh?
Dan's wife, Beth, leaves for the weekend with their daughter, while he stays in the city to attend an urgent meeting. And Alex Forrest turns up there.
Okay, now that we've got that on the table, what can we do to lift that injunction? If we believe the girl, is there some way we can get to the congressman? They take campaign contributions. Can we buy him off? Can we frighten him off? Is there something in his past that we can find out about? I mean, we need to use some leverage. I got 25...
Dan and Alex are elegant, self-confident individuals. It seems perfectly natural to shelter from the rain together. And it's Alex who seems to take the initiative. Yet somehow it's all perfectly normal.
Can I ask you something?
What?
Why don't you have a date tonight, a Saturday night?
I did have a date. I stood him up. That was the phone call I made. Does that make you feel good?
Doesn't make me feel bad.
So where's your wife?
Where's my wife? My wife is in the country with her parents visiting on the weekend.
And you're here with a strange girl being a naughty boy?
I don't think having dinner with anybody's a crime.
Not yet.
Will it be?
I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely think it's going to be up to you.
Can't say yet. I haven't made up my mind.
With Flashdance and 9.5 weeks to his credit, Englishman Adrian Lyne is some people's unfavourite director. But he found something special in Fatal Attraction.
It was really, literally, practically the only script that I'd read that I couldn't put down. In fact, I honestly didn't want the thing to end, you know? And you don't often feel that. And the story was such a wonderful cliffhanger. In a sort of Hitchcockian way, you know, that I found it irresistible. I just loved it. Loved the premise. Because it's scary. For any married man on earth, it's terrifying. And I guess it's pretty terrifying for the bachelors as well. You know, it's got a bit of everything, this movie. You know, it's, as I say, it's horrifying, it's sexy, sometimes it's very moving, I think.
Michael Douglas plays Dan.
It's an intense film, and whereas some characters you play, they're like characters, and you make the character sort of paint on the face. This is a picture which is can be very close to home. It's a very intense psychological drama.
I was running wiser that all the interesting guys are always married.
Well, maybe that's why you find them interesting, the fact you can't have them.
How long have you been married?
9 years.
Do you have any kids?
Mm-hmm. Got a 6-year-old girl.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'm lucky.
So what are you doing here?
Boy, you're not asking, aren't they?
No, I really want to know. I had a wonderful time last night. I'd like to see you again. Was that so terrible?
No. I just don't think it's possible.
The bottom line is that she's very much a victim. The repercussions of that are her behavior. She's a very manipulative woman, and I think the thing that I love about her is that she's a very real character. I think there's a lot in this character that hopefully will ring very true, because a lot of what she says is absolutely true.
Hey, honey. Oh, God, I missed you. Yeah?
As far as Dan is concerned, it's over. Life gets back to normal with Beth's return from the country, and he sees her with new eyes.
How are you? Good. Mm. Oh, my God, I missed you.
Liar. I did. Well, I should go away more often.
Adrian Lyne has excelled himself in this film. It's voluptuously directed, and the story is told with impressive psychological accuracy. When Dan's well-ordered world begins to fall apart, his worst nightmares come true. Fatal Attraction has already been highly successful with audiences in the United States, and it promises to do equally well here. It's an adult movie, but within the ranks of married couples and of single women from, well, adolescence up, just about everyone will find something that touches them. Fatal Attraction juggles lust, fear, guilt and retribution, and comes up with an irresistible combination.
Last year, there were over 200 computer suppliers in this city. There still are, but they're not the same 200. Still, whatever brand you buy needs service and support, and that's hard if your supplier is out of business. Blue Chip is one of Australia's largest wholly owned retail computer groups. The reason for our success? We only sell superb 100% IBM compatible Blue Chip computers with all the service and support you'll ever need. So for trouble-free computing for years to come, call Blue Chip now.
This is Billy Brown, wardrobe enemy number 1. So to survive him, this built-in wardrobe has to be ideal. Since ideal wardrobes are custom-made, there's a huge range of finishes and features to choose from, and that makes them ideal for any room. And for around $770 to fully install an 8-footer, they're ideal for any sort of storage problem. So phone Ideal for a free measure and quote, because ideal wardrobes are ideal storage.
Compared to the other 3 car rental companies, at Thrifty, you'll get the same quality cars, the same quality service. But at Thrifty, you'll pay a lot less. So go on, enjoy the savings. Thrifty Car Rental, come for the quality, enjoy the savings.
What you're looking at is the future. A state-of-the-art, computerized, audio-visual entertainment system. Touch it, and it obeys instantly. Compact disc, cassette recorder, an AM/FM receiver. Anything is possible. Audio or video. And it can all be controlled from the palm of your hand or by a single touch on a glass panel. The difference is, with Bang & Olufsen, the future is here and now. The Bang & Olufsen 9000. Only from Bang & Olufsen.
Now for some music, and our guests this Sunday must have sneaked a look at Peter Thompson's film review. Sydney rock group Do Re Mi with a number titled Adultery, the singer Deborah Conway.
should regret it. It will wrestle me down if I let